if you called me and you needed a door, I don't want to sell you a door. I want to help you buy what you need. That's my business philosophy. I don't want to sell you something. I want to help you find and buy what you need to solve the problem that you called me with.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Home Service Hustle. I'm your host, Jonathan Bannister, and today we've got special guests, a personal friend of mine, Billy Cline from Your New Door, based out of right here in Dallas, Texas. Billy, welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me on, John. This is a treat for me. I really enjoy talking about stuff like this. I love business, and it really is my passion.
So let's get into that. Like, how did owning your own business even start?
Well, I've always been somewhat self-employed ever since I got out of high school as a 1099 in some form or fashion. I really only had two W-2 jobs that I can remember. One of those was the military. I was in the National Guard and Army Reserves for 12 years, but I just grew up in a family that was always able to hustle up, their own paychecks. My dad and granddad built and remodeled and had heavy equipment and was just always entrepreneurial. Probably isn't the right word, but self-sufficient is a better word.
Okay.
They weren't really, into the business side of things, just enough to keep going, but weren't really big thinkers, but were able to go out and hustle up, and take care of their families. So I had a lot of exposure on that side of it growing up.
So how did so you're in the military, work for the government for better part of 12 years, and then when does the door industry?
So my previous life, I was married. I've been married twice, but my first wife, we got married pretty young. I was 22 and she was 19 or 20, and she wanted to move to Dallas to go to chiropractic school. There's a world-renowned chiropractic school here in Dallas, and we moved here. It was like 2002, and back then it was before the internet was a real big thing. So you go to the Dallas Morning News to the classifieds to find a job, right? So I answered an ad in the Dallas Morning News classifieds. A guy was looking for a trim carpenter, which I was a pretty good carpenter, and he met me on the side of the road in South Denton County. He gave me a patio door, sent me to a house out in Wise County, and said, go install this door, and if you do a good job, then I'll call you back tomorrow. So I met him on the side of the road. We loaded this door in my truck. It was a double patio door. Went out, installed it, took out a sliding door, and then the next day he called me and said, the customer said you did a great job. I'd like to hire you on full time. Well, I didn't really know all this at the time, but this guy had the contract with Home Depot for several stores to do the installations for their doors. So I did that for 3 or 4 years. Being 22 years old was really a pretty good living. I made 70, 80 grand a year, 90 grand, something like that, which was a lot of money back, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Now it's just a starter kit. But and I did that for a few years, and he lost his contract with Home Depot. I went to work for the other company that picked it up. But it was a lot like working for Walmart or the government or whatever. They want you to do more for less every year,
Right.
They didn't know what they were doing. There was too many moving parts, a lot of jobs that didn't, materialize for whatever reason. And the customers were always upset when I showed up. It taught me a lot about customer service and communication and things that we still do to this day that are very, very important to me. And I don't tolerate, like if my guys are going to be, if they're going to be 30 seconds late, they better call the customer 5 minutes beforehand and let them know, hey, I'm running a couple minutes behind, but I'm on my way. And, I learned that from them because, if you got someone that's already kind of loaded for bear, you really got to do your best to show them good customer service and be the best part of that experience for them. And that taught me that.
So you're working for the guy that got the contract. What year is that?
That was 2002 through about 2005 or so, 4 or 5, somewhere in there.
Okay. And then what's the next opportunity? What door opens next?
Well, then the internet starts to creep in a little bit, right? And I, toward the end of that, discovered Craigslist. And I met this guy on Craigslist who
Dude, settle down.
I know, right?
That's going to be one hell of a clip we put out. I met a guy on Craigslist.
Yeah, we go from the classifieds to Craigslist. Well, anyway, this guy was looking for someone to help him with doors, which was interesting to me because it's not just door thing. Most people don't realize that there's much to it, but he was looking for someone to help him install and repair doors. So I sent him a message through Craigslist. He got back to me. I told him my background. We were a good fit, but this was my first kind of taste into the internet stuff. Well, this guy had figured out how to do AdWords, right? He was on Google AdWords, and he was marketing on AdWords for door repairs. And he would just call me with a lead. He would ask me to go do the job, and then I would just give him a percentage of the job. We did that for 2 or 3 years, and I thought I was in tall cotton. I was a young guy and doing pretty good. And he kind of lost his interest in doing the door stuff anymore. So I happened to work for a customer one day, and he's like, "Man, you just need your own little website and a landing page." He's like, "I do that. I can help you with that." So the next thing I know, DFW Door Repair was born, and we had a landing page, and I bought a couple books, and I wandered off. This was really before YouTube was a big help, but I wandered off into Google AdWords and PPC, and that was really what got us up until maybe 12, 18 months ago. It was just me doing PPC. Which is a pretty wild story in and of itself. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot about what not to do. I learned how not to trust Google, not even a little bit. But I also learned how, and it's really kind of scary for all of us in home service that have to generate leads and calls for the people that depend on us for their living, for their paycheck, how scarily in control Google is over our businesses and our lives, and the flip of a switch, and you've lost all your traffic. So that all I take very seriously and respect it. And I'm, halfway scared of it, but I learned how to do all that and fumbled my way through it. And
so what year was that?
That was in like 2006, 7, somewhere in there.
And you got the company officially started?
Yeah. When I started DFW Door Repair, I think I had learned enough along the way to become incorporated in like 2008 or 9, but I'd been working for a long time, just, for cash and all the things, just surviving. And I met my wife in 2009, and we got married in 2011. So yes, right around in there. So we just did the best we could. I was learning the PPC thing. We were getting enough calls. I was making. I've always kind of bifurcated my time and attention with my vices, and one of them was I'm a tournament bass fisherman, so I've always traveled and gone all over the place fishing bass tournaments, and it was perfect, man. I could work 2 or 3 days a week and fish 2 or 3 days a week, and it was perfect. I had one helper. I was making good money and all the things, but one day I woke up and I was like, I can either save for retirement. I'm making a nice little living. I can save for retirement, but we're getting a lot of calls and I could use more help, or I could really turn this into a business that will help more people than myself. I didn't know what I was wandering off into at the time. I had zero business acumen, but I was a good, like a lot of people may relate to this story. They're a good technician. They're good at generating work. They're good at selling work. They're good at doing the thing, but they don't know a thing about payroll tax. They don't know a thing about franchise tax and sales tax and HR and W-9s and all the things, right? I didn't know any of that. So I wandered off into the wilderness, thinking I was going to help people, and I didn't even know how to help myself. So I did that for a handful of years and realized that I was in over my head and didn't know what I was doing. But along the way, I had started to listen to people through podcasts like this and others that knew a lot more about business than me. Tommy Mello was one that was a big influence in that area. I heard about Ken Goodrich on someone's podcast, and Ken Goodrich was I can't remember the podcast. I remember where I was driving when I heard his story for the first time. I'm like, holy cow. I went home, I looked him up on LinkedIn, and this was in like 2017, 2016, 2017. Mm-hmm. And I sent him a message on LinkedIn, and later that day, he sent me a message back with his cell phone number, right? And I learned that even the most successful people still want to help others, right? There is no exception in my experience that I've run into people that were successful in the home service or the trades that I haven't reached out to, that were not willing and able to be helpful in some way. And that means a lot to me, and it imprinted on me, and I want to do the same for people as well.
I
I'm
love it.
by no means to that level yet, but
Right.
what I've learned in a short period of time has a lot of value to people who are still trying to figure out where to get started, how to filter out the noise. Because today with the internet, we carry the internet in our pocket. The world is in our hand now.
Yeah.
There's so much noise, and it's so hard to figure out how to filter it out and where to start, So I have a passion for that, and how to help people kind of get pointed in the right direction, and who to trust, who to believe. We've talked a little bit about that earlier. How do you know who to trust and who to believe, and who's not full of shit, because a lot of them are, but there's also a lot of good ones.
You're right. And I think, that's an awesome point that you made. I think some of the most successful people that I've ever met are some of the most giving and easiest to reach and get in contact with. They're, and it may not necessarily always be them. They may put you in touch with their assistants, and then they'll get a message sent to you, but they're still willing to help you if you ask. And I found that very shocking at first, probably like you did, but now it's like, you can also see the ones that quote unquote look successful, or, present themselves as successful. They're not as willing to give back unless maybe there's a cost to it, or, there's some kind of class or master class or something to get into. But,
on the business side of it right now, the tide's going out, right? So we're starting to see who the real operators are, who's really genuine, who's got the culture, right? And, at the end of the day, and I'm kind of going off topic here, there's a lot of private equity that's been flooding into all home services.
Mm-hmm.
And I have observed, and I'm no expert, and I have zero experience with private equity at this point. But what I have observed, and through talking with some people who have, is what happens is, generally speaking, when they remove the entrepreneur and the capacity of the entrepreneur to run the business, and it becomes more about numbers and less about customer service, the culture shifts, right? And when the entrepreneur that has been there to this point, when they get pushed out of the way and culture isn't up high with everything else, it becomes about numbers and quotas and quarterlies and all that, which are important. Don't get me wrong, but that starts to affect your internal customers, which is your team members, your employees. Well, then that in turn goes out into the field, into the customers' homes, and the customers feel that through poor customer service, or cut corners, or that's not my fault, or that's not my problem, and not getting resolutions. And that starts to show up in your reviews, and it's just a big cycle. And it's, the degradation of that customer service and that culture from the entrepreneur to the homeowner. And we're starting to see that, happen a lot,
Yeah. So you mentioned something a little while ago about if like your guys are going to be 5 minutes late, or 30 seconds late, they better call 5 minutes before to even say that they're going to be late. But you mentioned that was something that you picked up early on. Was it early on for someone you worked for, or was it from the military, you think, that kind of?
No, it was when I was doing the installs for Home Depot, right? Like the fellow that I fell in with was actually a really good man, and very good customer service, very good culture oriented, but he never really got that big. He didn't really want to, but he always took care of his customers, and he always took care of his team. And part of that, customer service was, he was really big on, these people are already half pissed off because Home Depot doesn't, they drop the ball half the time. So they're loaded for bear when we show up. So let's not just not show up at all, or show up late and don't call and let them know we're running late. And, after that, when I got started, kind of doing my own thing with the doors, and I closed more jobs when I was running late than when I was on time, because I always called them to let them know I was running late. And they'd be like, "Thank you so much for calling to let me know, because we've been waiting for the cable guy," or whatever. They'll be here between 8 and 7 Sunday, right, or whatever. But they always appreciated that we called to let them know we were running late, or kind of get them closer to time, because at the end of the day, the most valuable resources any of us have is our time. And if we can show our customers that we value their time, that we respect them in their time, and that it's valuable to us, then, we generally will get repaid with reciprocity in some way, even if it's just a good review, right?
That's right.
So,
tell me, like, what sets you apart? You and I have talked about this. We get together, talk privately, and like, what do you feel separate? There's some other door companies in this market. It's a big market, but what separates you guys? What are you doing right now to even try to separate yourself even more and more from the competition?
So honestly, it's a lot easier, and I say easy. Maybe I should say simple, right? Because there's a lot of things that are simple, and we call it easy, but it's relatively difficult if you're not ready for it. But the biggest thing is that customer service aspect. We spend more time in our office working on the customer journey than working on doors or ordering components, right? Like, the customer's journey really is what will make or break you. And if we monitor our reviews and we monitor customer feedback, and if we're getting kind of acute data on certain things, we fix it, right? And we're also, the cool thing about learning from all these people that are growing these 20, 30, $100 million companies, they're talking about all of it on these podcasts, right? And so we can see what's coming down the line as we grow, right? In segments, from 0 to 1 million, 1 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 30, right? Like, there's things. So I'm expecting things to break, right? I'm expecting things to break as we go, and we're ready for it. And we're looking down the road. But really, the customer service aspect is really what sets us apart. We hear every single day, we called 3 companies. You're the only one that even called us back. They get an estimate, while we're on the phone with them. We do something that's relatively unique in the home service space, and we do all of our sales, 95% of our sales, over the phone.
When did that start? You told me that recently.
Yeah, I started it before COVID hit, but COVID really, kind of helped us to shine it in. Pre-COVID, I was the only sales guy, and I was getting 10 or 12 calls a day. And there's no way that one guy can go and look at 10 or 12 jobs a day in a place as big as Dallas, right?
Yeah.
So I was just doing it out of necessity. I was getting, tired of the tire kickers. I didn't know anything about close rate or booking rate or average ticket or any of that. I was just like, this is what it costs. You want to do it or not? It was a very technical discussion. There was no sales. There was no nothing. It was like, hey, my name's Billy. I'm the door guy. Thanks for sending the pictures. I can tell from the picture, this is what you need. This is what it costs. When do you want to do it? Or we'll call you back or whatever, right? I didn't know a thing about sales, but as I learned more and more about sales, I realized, holy cow, I'm leaving a lot of opportunity on the table. So it really is for what we do. It's not that technical. So, and 90% of the houses that were built after 1970 in our market are all pretty much the same way. Our houses are either framed with 2x4s or 2x6s, right? So it tells me, I can tell how thick the walls are. There's really only 2 heights that were used around here in doors since 1955. So that's not too hard to judge. And then there's only a handful of widths, so and there's only a few things that can go wrong. So it's not that hard for us to kind of give people an idea on what they're looking at in price. But now we do a much better job of building value. We do a much better job at asking the right questions of the customers and getting buy-in from them along the way, and just general sales. My sales philosophy is such, though, that I when I listen to calls, sometimes I get upset because if you called me and you needed a door, I don't want to sell you a door, right? I want to help you buy what you need. And that's my business philosophy. I don't want to sell you something. I want to help you find and buy what you need to solve the problem that you called me with, right? Mm-hmm. Because almost 100% of our calls are demand calls. So someone calls us with a problem that we have the skill set and the knowledge to solve. We should be able to close that customer because they called us with a problem. It wasn't a door knock lead. It wasn't a cold call lead. It was they have a problem. They found us online. They sought us out and gave us a call. So if we're not closing those calls, we're missing the point for them in value somewhere. So that's what we work on a lot now.
So are you going to take that same approach? Because a lot of the things you're doing now is inbound. A lot of your leads are coming inbound. A lot of traffic coming to your website. You were doing a lot of PPC. We can talk about that in a minute. I know you've recently cut that out. But now you're going to start really focusing on your brand a lot more, getting more on the social media platforms, working through the different stages of the funnel, which is educating, giving value. So will you take that same approach? Would always be like if somebody sees something, they don't know if they need something or not. Like they just see a pretty door, like, you know, like that would look good on my house, and they call. Are you going to take the same approach of I'm still want to try to help you with whatever you need?
Absolutely. And what I tell my people is, if not us, then who, right? Like who can solve this problem if not us? If we're not equipped, if this is truly our avatar and we have all the things that can solve their problems and they don't choose us, then who are they going to choose, right? And there's not a lot of choices in this particular vertical in this market. There's some, and there's actually a couple of really good choices outside of us, and we tell people about them sometimes. But the approach, though, is if we take care of our customer, if we just put stuff out into the ethos, all the things that we're supposed to be doing with branding, entertaining people now on social and just being there. The radio, we work with Wizard of Ads, and that's starting to bubble up really big for us. But just all these things are like planting crops, right? So you plant crops before you're hungry, right? And of course, we have to eat along the way. So as long as we can sustain and maintain with our normal stuff, some of these crops are going to start to, come to harvest. And then when we get all that, we're going to be like, oh my gosh, we're not ready for all this. But there's so many things that you can do to be planting crops, even if you don't have any money today, right? And for so long, I've been thinking about this a lot. And one of the things that kind of is fixed my mindset, but we played defense for so long, right? Like just to not fail. And now we're on offense to win, right? And it's such a totally different feeling and place to work from when you're not playing to not lose, you're playing to win. And it's just a mentality shift. It's a shift in the way you feel when you wake up and how you approach the world. And it will take a lot of stress off of you and your family. So, but there's things that you can do when you're on defense to start planting these seeds, right? Like they say the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago, and the second best time is now. That tree's got to grow and bear fruit. But if you plant it today, in 5 years, you'll start getting all these little fruits are going to start coming about from the tree you planted. It didn't cost that much to plant the tree and to do the things along the way. You just have to shift your mind from defense to offense.
I love that analogy.
It's hard to do when you're down by 30.
That's right. When you're down and you feel like the game's already lost, right? I mean, it's hard to be able to see that light at the end of the tunnel. So, like, kind of talking on that topic, like, how do because your team's growing now, how do you keep your team motivated? So
we have a lot of things that we do around here. Number one, I've been so fortunate, right? Like in my core team, we're roughly 30 total team members here. But my core people, I've got more A players on my team than a lot of 200 people companies have. And we've only got 30 people, like 28 or 29. And to have 5 or 6 A players, 25 or 30% of my staff are studs that, 200 and 300 people companies don't have that many, is really a game changer and a blessing. So the first thing I'll tell you is vision, right? Like before that even was my mindset, just fixing my mindset. I grew up with a poor mindset around poor people and just a what do we call it, defeatist mentality, right? And now I have an abundance, mindset, and that was the first thing that I had to do. And if you don't have an abundance mindset, you'll never make enough money, right? Like you'll never be happy with where you're at. So you got to fix your mindset, and then you got to have a vision. And once I have a vision and got my people on the culture and bought into my vision, then all I have to go out and tell them what the objectives are and get out of their way. I give them the resources and I give them whatever they need to do that within the parameters of the game and get out of their way, and then just measure the return or the output that we get from that. And that really is as simple as that. Get good people, give them the rules of engagement, give them the resources that they need, and then measure the output and make adjustments from there. And our day-to-day here, they don't come to me that much, right? Maybe when we got something big or something hairy or something like that. But for the most part, as long as they have the resources and the KPIs, I feel like Aunt B on the Andy Griffith show when she went off for a couple of days and came back and they had the house clean, and she was like, oh my gosh, they don't need me anymore, right? So it's getting to be to where I can focus on big picture stuff, and there's a lot of big picture stuff, but also some new things that we're brainstorming and putting together as well, and it really is a game changer when they're not coming to me to find out where to buy screws or where we should go get gas. Hiring Dan, my operations manager, 2 years ago. It was 2 years ago, 2 weeks, like 3 weeks ago. Man, that was such a game changer. At the time, I could barely make payroll, and this guy came in and wanted 90 grand to do all this stuff. And I was like, yes, that was probably 60% more than I was paying myself at the time. Right. But the amount of stuff that he took off my plate to where I could focus on starting to fix these things and to go on offense, it's a game changer. And if you're a visionary in your business and you can see where you want to go and you can see a path forward, but you just don't have the time, you really have to find yourself in EOS. They call it an integrator or an implementer to complement the visionary, and just give them the objectives and the resources and get out of their way. And that's kind of what we've done here.
It sounds like you made a major shift. Was there a moment that something happened that caused that shift to take place? That you turned into like a true leader and stopped kind of being a slave to your business?
There was multiple times where we would have really good weeks, right? Like make more money than we would bring in more money than we had brought in and for forever, really. And then when you pay all the bills and make payroll, it was always just enough, right? Like it was just barely enough. A lot of times it wasn't enough. I had to pump money in for a long time, but it was all because I didn't know what I was doing. And when I realized after listening to others and sitting quietly in the shadows and the first event I ever really went to was 2 years ago. It was in April 2 years ago. It was Pantheon in LA. And I wasn't going to go to that, but my CSM from Service Titan gave me 2 free tickets. And it still cost us all the money we had to go, with plane tickets and hotel and food and all things. But I met so many great people that were doing big things and were so helpful that it literally shifted my mindset and my thought process on what it takes to be successful. It's not as much generating revenue and sales as it is giving people a place to work where they feel appreciated and where they feel understood, and training those people ongoing and giving them opportunities for success with no cap. And I didn't know all that, right? And I didn't learn it all from one trip to Pantheon, but what that did was it started to feed me and fuel me to do other things. And I went to like 3 events that year. 2 of them were Tommy's, maybe 4. And people like Tommy, Tommy helped me out a lot. He gave me some tickets to a couple of his deals, and I couldn't really afford to go, but we went and all things. And, I'll never forget. It was 2022. We were in Phoenix at his show, his second event that year, and get a call from Dan. He's like, bro, we got checks bouncing and all kinds of problems, right? We had a customer that had paid us, and the check that they had paid us was it was an honest mistake on their part, but they wrote it out of an account that the wrong account basically, but it was like 20 grand. And so when that happened, the bank took it out of our account, and we had just done payroll and all things, and it was one of the most stressful times that I've ever been in. And right then and right there, I told myself I will never be in this position again, and I haven't, knock on wood. But just putting yourself in those situations and having to make those hard choices and be under that kind of stress will galvanize you, and it'll either make you decide you're cut out for being a leader, or you'll know right then, hey, I need to go work for somebody else. Because if you can't handle that, you're not going to make it.
So what do you think, like what kind of leadership qualities do you think is essential for running like a service-based business like you do? And, what advice do you give to someone that's lacking some of these qualities that you feel are like absolutely necessary?
Well, you have to be able to take charge, right? Like you have to be able to answer questions, and you have to be a problem solver. And if it's a lot easier for people to follow someone that they see taking charge and running into the burning building than it is to no one respects someone that sits back and watches the building burn and tells someone else to go get, the fire hose. They want to see you, working, putting out the fire. And when people are bought into that first, right, they'll never buy into your vision, never respect you until they do, right? So you have to do things to earn their respect, and you have to show them that you're willing to work hard. You need to be in there cleaning the toilets and letting them see servant leadership, whatever it takes, right? If there's money issues, they don't want to see you going off to places and barely getting paid or whatever, right? And sometimes that transition is hard, but you just need to be, cognizant of what's going on around you, and they need to see you working on stuff. So 2 years ago when I hired Dan, I brought everybody in. I said, we're tearing this place down from the top to the bottom, and we're starting over. And this is how we're going to do it. And we found our cornerstones. One was our brand. So everything, we built everything off of our brand, our online presence, our website, our wraps, all the things. Two was our culture. Up to that point, I had done some things wrong. I didn't know what I was doing. And I came out to my people, said, look, I don't know what I'm doing. Up to this point, I've gotten a lot of great help. I'm working on myself every day. I'm reading books. I'm listening to podcasts. I'm doing all these things. And if you guys will give me the chance, I'll show you that this is where we're going and what we're doing. And another thing was, I promised them that we were going to make improvements. They were going to see me make personal improvements, and we were going to make 1% per day improvements around here. And you may not see it. It's just like going to the gym. You don't see it day to day, but when you look back a year, even 6 months, you start to see all the things that have happened, and you're like, holy cow, wow, that is a lot. And now we live by that around here, right? But what happens is that 1% per day, it doesn't look like much, but over time it starts to compound. 1% of 1,000 is 10, but 1% of 1,000,000, right, is 10,000. And when you start to get to that point, then that 1% starts to compound so much faster, like compound interest. And the 1% starts to make more and more visual, observable differences. And that's where we're at now. We've got momentum, and it's like a flywheel. And once you kind of start getting it going, it just, things move a lot faster. Things move a lot more. You get a lot more significance out of the moves you're making. And, it's very encouraging to the people around you to start see these things happen that you shared in your vision on day one. So this is what we're going to do. And when those things start happening, man, it's, the people they'll follow you anywhere, right? Because number one, you're doing what you said you do. And number two, you feel like the Wizard of Oz. The things you said were going to come true are starting to come true. I
love it.
Yeah.
And,
awesome.
And this is why you and I have clicked. I've turned Billy into a bodybuilder now. We started our workout journey at the beginning of this year, and he's stuck to it. That's been awesome.
Yeah, that's another thing, right? Just in business, there's so many things that I still don't know. And there's a lot. Let me give you guys this. This is the one word that everyone should put in your shirt pocket and take it out every day, play with it, and then put it back in your pocket. Curiosity. Be curious, right? If there's no reason to be curious about anything anymore when we have this. The answers to everything in this world you can find in the palm of your hand. YouTube, whatever, podcast, Google, it's all there. But be curious. And I was intimidated by going to the gym, right? Like I knew I needed a change. When I got on the scale after Thanksgiving and I was 245 pounds, the heaviest I'd ever been in my life, I was like, I need a change. And I went and joined the gym. I joined the gym 6 weeks before I ever set foot inside it. but I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know where I was going. And one day I had posted about I had my experience with a fast because I just knew I needed a catalyst. So I've been seeing the stuff about people doing 3-day fasts and stuff, and I needed a catalyst, right? And for me, that was going to give me a catalyst to lose a little bit of weight, to kind of get focused. And it was over Christmas time, and just a time for me to reflect on a lot of things. And I posted about it, and you reached out and said, "Hey, you're happy to, more than happy to help you out in the gym just to kind of get started." And for 6 weeks, I drove 45 minutes each way to come and work out with you. But that gave me the boost that I needed, the confidence that I needed to go in and, just to break it down, just a framework.
Yeah.
And once I felt comfortable with that, I was able to start adding on with my diet and different exercises, things. But we can do the same thing in our businesses, right? Mm-hmm. If you don't know something, find someone that's an expert. You don't have to make the mistakes. You can, a lot of times when you get to a point, you can start seeing things coming down the road. Seek out someone that's an expert in that field, and they'll give you a framework, and you can, put it in place, make it pay, and then make it better. And that's how we do everything around here, is with a framework.
Yeah, I was super impressed with your dedication. There were some cold ass mornings. There was snow and ice on the ground.
I know that.
Yeah, it was dark outside, and you were like, I was like, how about 7:30 tomorrow? You're like, no, like 6:15 is better for me. And I'm like, dude,
I was getting up at like 3:30 or 3:45 to make it over there, and then to make it from there, to another 45 minutes to Irving to my office. But I wouldn't have changed it. It's it really was. It's just like anything else that I've done in business, right? And I haven't done a lot, but I've done a lot more than I probably ever would have had I not been curious and sought help. Help is really, there's so much help out there, and like I said earlier when we got started, it's hard to sift through the noise, right? But when someone like you reaches out to me and says, "I will help you," if you put your problems out or talk a little bit about what's going on, there's great people out there. And Jonathan, you reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'll help you," and I was like, "All right, man, sign me up. Where do I need to go?" But you got to be hungry, right? You got to be ready for it, and prepare yourself, and just be tired of just getting by, and be tired of just taking what the world gives you, and you can go out and get what you want.
Well, let's talk about something that may not, be the most popular topic to some people because it's going to hurt. But do you think some people, like, how they say, like, school's not for everyone? I think being a business owner may not be for everyone. They think that's what they need to do, or they want to do, or they like the power and control, whatever it may be. They like making their own hours. But, if you continue to say you want this, or this is how I want things to be, but like years and years and years go by and there's nothing changing, your team doesn't change, your customer service, the experience, nothing, like at some point you got to really be able to reflect and say, I'm the problem. And some people just won't change, and it's not going to happen, so like, how do those people, like, when do those people need to wake up and really be able to accept that?
That's a really good question. In my experience, if you're not passionate, when people ask me, like, and I'm pretty big on Twitter, and I follow a lot of business SMB type people, right? And there's a guy on there that's
I'm on X. You're on Twitter?
Well, whatever it's called now. Yeah, X. And there's a guy on there that's the franchise guru, right? Or whatever. And they're always talking about franchises and all these things. But the problem I have with most franchises and people that buy them is they're not passionate about what it is that they're getting involved with, right? It's something that they have enough money to get into it. They think that they're going to generate, 6 to 7, figures a year or whatever. But it's just there's no, they're not entrepreneurs, and they don't, and a lot of us start out, we don't know that we're entrepreneurs. We just get in this to make money. But that entrepreneurial spirit that I was talking about earlier, that affects the culture and the way your people treat your customers, they don't start out with that. They may wind up with it through trial and error, or getting into the right networks and stuff like that. But it's all about a transaction. It's a very transactional arrangement, and it's never going to work big picture. Now, maybe something transactional like a sandwich shop or something like that, right? Like where there's just a lot of people to buy. But in home service, transactional really isn't going to cut it. If you want to see the difference in a company like mine in a company like Home Depot, get online right now and Google Home Depot near me installation reviews. Bro, it's like, I'd be shocked if they've got more than 2.5 stars out of probably 20,000 reviews, right? But it's a transactional experience, and people are expecting, a relational experience, but they don't even realize it when they go to a place that is very transactional. It's like dealing with Walmart, right? You go there for a transaction, not for an experience.
Right.
You go to HEB for an experience, right? It's just a much different experience. My wife and I went to the new HEB in Fort Worth this weekend on Sunday at 11 a.m. There was 150 people outside holding carts trying to get in. It wasn't like that across the street at Walmart, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just a different experience. So if we can give people an experience through our home service business and realize that it's not just a transactional arrangement, then that's really what it takes to be an entrepreneur or to be a leader. You have to have, you either have it or you don't, I think. But to start out, if you're not passionate about what you're doing, you probably shouldn't be doing it. You maybe passively invest in it or something like that, but you shouldn't devote your career to it.
Yeah, I think there's some questions that people ought to come up with and kind of ask themselves. And it's like, there was a time I see a lot of myself in you, like a lot of our stories. And I think back when you were saying you enjoyed working 3 days, fishing 3 days, you had the good life. And then you got a couple extra, you had like a consistent couple extra leads coming in. You're like, well, I could actually hire a couple people. But then you get in that situation of, well, damn, like if I go hire them and the leads don't keep coming in, then I'm stuck with losing more than I'm taking home now with putting towards my new bass boat.
Listen, I hear up until recently, and I meddle, right? Like, I've always been really hands-on in all aspects of my business, and I've gotten away from almost everything except for sales and marketing, right? I still manage the sales guys, and I still, manage a lot of the marketing, but there's so much to lose for everyone in those two aspects. You don't necessarily need to be the sales manager, or you don't necessarily in your business, and you don't need to be the marketing manager, but you better understand how those work. You better understand and watch that you're not wasting a bunch of money on leads that aren't, converting right. And those are the two places in your business where you're going to lose everything if anything happens major, right? If you're burning leads, if you're spending 25% of your revenue on marketing, something's wrong somewhere, and you got to pay attention to that, or you're not going to be in business anyway. And that scares the crap out of me.
Yeah, and I think some of the business owners I think that I'm talking about here, again, and I'm not trying to tell everybody they suck and go out of business. I care more about the employees and their team, and so you were like, one day you just said, I'm not going to let my team feel this way anymore, and I'm not going to let them down anymore, and I'm going to give them the confidence that they know that this company is for real, and that we're not going to have these issues. And I just think that some people, either they're selfish or they can't get out of their own way, and that those are the people that I feel that just may not have the heart and the passion for the business. And I mean, like, to the point where I don't do sales a lot in my company anymore. I enjoy it because I enjoy talking to people, and I want to help people. So like, if I can help them, but man, like when I'm at home in my home office and I do get on a sales call, like my wife comes and tucks towels underneath the door because she says I have this sales voice that makes her ears like hurt, but I just get excited, and she's like, how many times have you done that? Like, who was this? Were you talking to the president? I'm like, no, I was just talking to a company that's 2 million trying to get to 3, and they're struggling, and they keep getting screwed by stuff, and I want to help them.
This goes back to what I said earlier. You're not trying to sell them something. You're helping them buy. You're trying to help them buy something that's going to help them, right? Yeah. It's going to solve their problem, and that's just the big difference in a transactional, arrangement and a relational arrangement, and people that genuinely want to help. There's a lot of them out there. We don't see it every day. We're surrounded by the news that's negative and casting negative, worldviews and all things. But when you get into your network and you get around people, you really realize how much positive and good there really still is. And that, especially in the home service space, right? It's really a small world in the home service space, and we all kind of know each other, and everybody knows who's doing good and who to stay away from and all things for the most part. And, but everybody will help. You get in some of these Facebook groups and everybody's trying to offer advice and help and jump on a call. And, I do that stuff all the time. I had 2 calls last week with guys that are, just kind of getting started. And it does good for me. It makes me feel good to help those guys, but it also helps me keep me grounded, remember where I came from, because some of the pains that they're talking through still make me hurt inside about some of the experiences that I had when I was going through that, and it's something that I don't ever want to lose that feeling either, right? And not appreciate and not be humble in all the things.
So let's talk about the future plans. Let's talk about some of the things you got going on and super exciting stuff, but also talk about Billy of 2 years ago as a business owner. Like, if these opportunities would have come to you, like you just said, you're at Tommy's event and, you're getting calls and things are bouncing, right? I mean, so talk about kind of how those things just start to happen and doors start to open, no pun intended, whenever you get your shit right and the foundation is kind of built the right way.
Yeah. When you start to get things right, we hear all these pie in the sky BS motivational quotes and all the things, like about energy and stuff like that, the laws of manifestation and stuff. But I'm here to tell you that stuff is real and that stuff works, right? And if you envision yourself in a certain place in a certain time doing a certain thing, and it's into the future, and you live your life today like for a certain fact that that's going to happen, that causes you to do things that propagate that, right? That foster that, and it does literally come true. But when you start getting around people that have done these things already, and that you're doing the right things, you're still going to make mistakes, but you're doing the right things. It really, you start to believe in yourself, right? And there's no one more dangerous than someone who finally starts to believe in themselves and gets a little bit of momentum. And the Billy from 2 years ago, I'll tell you a quick story. Probably 6 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, somewhere around 2016, 17, somewhere in there, there was a company in Dallas called Treehouse. And we had we were doing our doors and all the things, and probably rocking along at $80,000 a month, something like that in sales, which was a lot for us at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they come to town. They put in this big home center type store, and they sold green home improvements, right? They sold Tesla walls and low VOC painting and formaldehyde-free cabinets and stuff like that. And they were selling the crap out of stuff. Well, they called me one day. It's like, hey, we need somebody that can install our doors and windows. Would you guys be interested? I'm like, sure. So I went and met with them and all things and signed us up. We started installing our doors and windows. Well, I come from a background of doing a lot of kitchens and baths, and they were struggling with their contractors for kitchens and baths. So I'm like, hey, let us do the kitchens and baths too. So I immediately went out and hired, 15 people, and we were just going like gangbusters. They were paying invoices left and right, no questions asked, change orders, no questions asked. It was insane, to the point where I'm like, these people have to be laundering money, right? Because no one just writes checks like this without asking questions. And one day the invoices started getting paid a little slow. And I'm like, all right. And then not too long after that, they started getting paid a whole lot slower, to the point where we were like struggling to make payroll and stuff. And then I was, 50 or 60,000 deep on projects, and that I had already paid out on stuff, and went by there one day and they'd already been shut down. Their investors pulled out and all the things, and they were out of money. And so I was left holding the bag for $50,000 or $60,000, and I had to lay off or let go of several good people. But what that taught me was that really wasn't my core, my core thing at the time. We weren't ready for something like that. I didn't have the business acumen to put something like that together, and we almost went bankrupt. So we rallied. We pulled back into our core, competency, which was the door thing. And for 3 years, 4 years, we just kept building up, getting back around the doors. And then that's when I started to get into all these things and learn about people who are successful and reading books and all the stuff. I hired Dan. And when I hired Dan, I said, as we rebuild this business, I want to keep a playbook, so to speak, right? We built an operating system on the things that we're going to do. So if down the road we get the opportunity to start another business, or if we ever get bought out, we've got the playbook and what it's going to take just to hit the ground running to build another business, right? We'll have that. So fast forward 2 years, we're at the point where I'm not, I'm still very involved every day, moving things around here at Your New Door. We've got a national vision, right? We're working on the strategy to go to new markets relatively soon, but I'm not involved in 8 hours all day long with Your New Door. It's just not, they don't need me to run the day to day. So now what we're doing is we're working on adding in a couple new verticals. We're going to start with windows, and we're building these up as standalone companies, standalone brands. We're restructuring our corporate office to do shared services, and setting all that up to where we've got one call center, we've got one sales trainer, all the things for all these businesses will be housed inside one shared corporation. Payroll, all things, but we'll be separate businesses. That way, at a certain point, if we ever wanted to sell one of those businesses or focus solely, we'll be able to have the numbers for each one to see where's what. And windows is just a natural fit with doors. So that's what we're going to focus on first. We're building a brand around each one of these new aspects, and they'll each have our own standalone brand. We're partnering with experts in those fields that don't have the operating system or the business back end. We're putting all that together, and we're gonna generate the leads, and we're gonna help them with sales, and they're gonna sell and perform everything that goes on outside this building, and we'll handle everything that happens inside the building. And now that's my passion, right? And I mentioned earlier, you shouldn't get into business doing something you're not passionate about. But now my passion is building business. I love, we're not 10 million yet. We're knocking on its door, but I feel like that the operating system we have can take a guy that's doing $600,000 or $700,000 and get him to 5, 7, 8 million, in a relatively short period of time. If someone come in here today and robbed me and took everything I have out and put me back to zero in business, where I'm at today, I would be back here in less than 18 months. What's took me 15 years to get here, because we just know where to start now. We know right where to go. We know what not to do. And so we want to take that. We want to give that to people who are interested in doing more, don't know how, but they're great at their trade and know all about their craft. We've got our own in-house SEO and the website guy now. So, we can do all that and push all that out and just give them a good platform to jump off from. And by the time we get those businesses 5, 7, 8 million, we're going to be, somewhere between 12 and 20, and I'll have more acumen to bring them along to go further or decide what to do with them from there. But that's kind of what we're looking at.
That's super exciting, man. I wish you guys the best of the luck. And I know you're going to kill it. And, just when you told me that, I was just super, super excited for you guys.
We're really excited about it. I'm excited. I haven't really let it out into the world. I don't like to talk about like big things and things that I'm going to do, because when I was young, like I mentioned earlier with the whole mindset thing, I was around people that were always like, oh, that'll never work. Right. Mm-hmm. They always talked about what could go wrong. And I've had so much of the wrong stuff happen to me. I'm not scared of it anymore. Right. Like I have had all the wrong things happen to me to the point where it's like, there's not much else left except they take my life. Right. So I'm not scared of any of it. So, but I don't like to put it out too much into the world until I'm already well on my way and we're like, oh, wow. And then, it takes away a lot of opportunity for people to try and discourage me and for me to get discouraged by people who say, that'll never work. So-and-so tried it, So I usually keep it, to myself until, but
It's out there now.
I know we're excited about it. We're gonna change lives, and
I love it.
it doesn't take a lot to change someone's life sometimes, right? A guy that's doing $300,000 or $400,000 a year, when he gets to 2 million a year, that's a lot, right? That's 4x, 5x what he was doing. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to be doing $20 million to be successful, right? Success is objective. You get to decide what success means to you, and success is always on the horizon. So if you don't enjoy the trip to the horizon, when you get there and there's money there, you're never going to get there, for one, because the horizon is always moving, but there's always further to go. So you have to enjoy where you're at. You have to enjoy the journey, and you have to take time, the old cliche, take time to smell the roses along the way. Enjoy your kids, enjoy your wife, enjoy your husband, celebrate the wins, learn from the losses, and success is you can feel successful every single day if you're making progress.
That was very well put, my friend. All right, so last question, because we're running out of time. Legacy, like, what impact do you hope to leave throughout your leadership ability, and just as a man and as an entrepreneur? Like, what is the impact that you're hoping that your legacy leaves behind?
Well, this is something that I think about a little bit, and I'll tell you what I tell my people when I hire them, right? Like, when whatever happens with Your New Door, if we go to all 50 states, if somebody comes in with a boatload of cash and wants to buy us or whatever, the people that work here today most likely won't work here in 10, 15, or 20 years, right? They'll have opportunities and can move on. But the one thing that I promise these people is, if they will follow me, if they will continue to work on themselves and learn, if they will let me lead them, when they do leave here, their value on the marketplace against their peers will be so much higher because of what they're going to learn from this journey than it will be if they just work somewhere, right? We value their time and their output in such a way that we promise all our people that they'll get paid for what they know along the way, and as well of what they do, right? And if you're only getting paid for your time, you don't bring a lot of value. But along the way, if you learn, invest in yourself, become a totally different person, I want to pay you for what you know and the value you bring there. And that's the gap. We hear Alex Hormozy talks about it all the time. The difference between what you make today and what you want to make is what you don't know. So we do leadership book club here once a week. We actually have 2 levels of leadership book club. One is for everybody. Everyone in the company has to read the books that we use. And it's usually, the first one we did was How to Win Friends and Influence People. Right now we're doing Chop Wood and Carry Water. Very entry-level principle type books. And then our second level leadership book club, right now we're almost done with 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And we go through that every week, chapter 2, 3, or whatever, as a team. We discuss it and all things. That's also something else along with that is without leadership, you'll never scale, right? And the one thing that I realized is there's not a lot of people out there that have experience against our vertical. So why not build our leaders from within, the people that already know what we're doing? So we started this about 8 months ago, and we know that by building these people now, I'll have a deep bench when we start to go to places like Houston and Oklahoma City or whatever. I can pull off my bench for people that can be leaders, in these other opportunities, and I've promised that to them. And if they will just follow along, like I'm doing with people that are running before me, right? I'm not a pioneer. I'm not a trailblazer. I'm following someone else that's already gone. And if my people will follow me, then when they leave here, then I've made them, they'll understand business a lot better. They'll be able to go in the marketplace and have an immediate valuable impact wherever they land with minimal input from whoever hires them.
Well, you gave me chills, and I wrote down the book club because I'm going to pick your brain about this more offline, and I'm going to implement this immediately. So
it's there's others that do it, and I didn't really talk to anyone else how they do it or anything. I just knew that if my people are bought into my vision, then I need to give them the skill set to be able to help pull it off. Otherwise, it's hard to get buy-in from people when you hire from outside the organization for leadership, because number one, they don't know them, right? They don't know that they're going to get the respect that they feel like they should deserve from bringing someone from the outside. But it also gives them something to look forward to and to truly get promoted based off of merit and value. Otherwise, they wouldn't have. We're creatures of how do you put this? We generally will take the path of least resistance, and reading isn't something that I particularly enjoy. I listen to a lot of books, but I could sit here. I could have been reading for an hour and got done and be like, what the heck did I just read, and have to start over, right?
Right.
I'm one of those people, but I can listen to a book when I'm driving and catch most of it. But people just don't like to read. So I have had such already, some key people here respond in such a favorable way. People that I was blown away. I'm like, this guy's never even going to read the book. But not only have they read the book, but they were telling me that it's changing their lives at home, and how they interact with their families. It gives me chills just thinking about it. That little thing, the impact that has that you never know. And, it just is very, very necessary for leadership at all levels. And if you can build your own leaders, when you need one, just like the crops we were talking about earlier, just go pick one off.
They're there. They're growing.
They're bought into your vision. They know your systems and processes. They have the respect of their team for the most part. And, they know where they're going. So
I love it. Well, I'm going to call this, because I've got so many more questions for you. I'm going to call this part 1 of part 2. Maybe there's more parts, but we're definitely going to finish this up. We'll do it at your place next time, and Chris will just record it. So we end the show with rapid fire questions. So I'm going to fire some questions at you, and you just shoot from the hip. You ready?
I'll do my best.
All right. Childhood hero?
My granddad.
Beach or mountains?
Boy, that's a tough one for me. I love the mountains.
Okay. Famous person that you'd invite to dinner. They can be dead or alive.
Elon Musk.
Yeah, that's a good one. Most adventurous thing you've ever done?
Start a business. It's an adventure every day.
That's right. Does Billy have a spirit animal?
Oh, man. Gosh. Nothing that comes to mind.
What's something surprising that most people don't know about you?
That I love to mow.
Oh, I love to watch somebody mow.
Against the value of my time, it's
yeah,
right. Like I could go and make enough in the 2 hours it takes me to mow all of our land, to pay for it for 3 months. But just this weekend, even I was mowing, and I could think. I have ADD, right? So when I'm driving, I think so clearly because I'm focused on driving, right? I can think clear thoughts without all these penetrating thoughts coming in and taking me all over the place. Same thing when I'm mowing. Bro, I come up with the most brilliant business stuff when I'm mowing and just some of the craziest ideas that we want to do when I'm mowing or anything, like operating anything, because I'm focused on something and I don't have all the penetrating thoughts and I can follow a single train of thought for a while.
That makes sense.
And it's crazy, I know, but yeah, I like to mow.
If you had a sudden career change right now, what would it be?
Probably consulting.
And the last one, which is always my favorite, does Billy believe in aliens?
I want to. There's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of noise out there. I'll just say that I'm not totally scared if there are. Right?
Yeah.
I'm one of those optimists in that area. I guess I enjoy the show Ancient Aliens.
Yeah, I watch it.
Those shows, and I think that there's a lot of stuff that we don't know about the past.
Yeah.
and a lot of interesting things that we'll find out someday, maybe.
That's right. Well, dude, I've really enjoyed this. I'll see you Friday. We're gonna
Looking
pinch some
forward to it.
tails,
Yeah.
suck some heads.
We've got 300 pounds of crawfish coming Friday afternoon.
Well, I appreciate it. We'll shoot part 2 soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on, buddy.
Thanks, man.